He played in the Invincibles Noongyar team. He was the captain. He was the superstar in that team.
So have you spoken to Clive Wally? Because Clive, he wasn't the writer of the book, but I think he got the book going and stuff like published and stuff like that. So up at Noongyar there, yeah, gee whiz. How very, very good.
Yeah, I went into the library and then I gave them some of my information, my grandparents, and they just traced it right back, and I can't thank them more than enough. Braden at the library, Noongyar history.
Yeah, sure.
And apparently, I don't know if this is correct, maybe I got the Blurton name. They've got counties and shires over there named Blurton, and it's a European name.
It is a very European name. It's actually Anglo-Saxon.
Yes.
Anything with a T-O-N on the end of it is corruption for town, and it's Anglo-Saxon. So you find them mostly in southern England. Same thing with the Eagles. I think the Eagles were from southern Britain as well.
Yes.
Very interesting. And this is your both sides of Noongyar, is it, or just one side?
Yes, Noongyar. Because as you can see, York, and they over here same.
Oh yeah, okay.
But
Sure.
but here, the Grey River. My connection's up there.
Really? Okay. All the way up there.
Yeah. So my bloodline goes right through the state, and then I look at my mother's side, and yeah.
Yeah. How very, very interesting. Like I say, most people couldn't even achieve. Oh no, I can't. I couldn't get this type of stuff.
It is very good that I've received that.
Yeah, I know.
And I've got my mother's one. That's the mob there. That's my we are the Kumar. That's our Aboriginal name.
Right.
And then Taylor, we took that name as the European name.
Yeah, sure.
And that's my nana would be there.
Is that right?
Yes, because that's her. No, sorry, my granddad. That's his grandfather. Right. So he may be one of these little fellas here.
Gee whiz. Very, very lucky to have a group photograph too, isn't it?
Yes.
Whereabouts was this taken anyway?
I've been in Noongyar.
Oh yeah, you mentioned Noongyar on the weekend,
Okay. Yeah, sure. I can't get over this actual. No, that's fine. That's a great photograph, and that's at the Valley Library.
Yes.
Desmond, you're lucky that you got that type of stuff available for you.
Yes. We've got like a lot of other stuff there. I think. There you go. There's my mum's sign now. And Alfred and Sarah, that's in there.
Yeah. Huh. I was going to say the Dimers are from down, I thought Esperance Way, but the Israelite Bay, which is pretty close, isn't it?
Yes. And Henry, I think, he was like Germany, German blood. That's where Dimer come from.
He's German. He's came out with the gold rush, did he? Looks like.
Yes, I think he did. And I'm pretty sure that he's still got some properties or something up there.
Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah,
even some mine he's got something to do with. He's my grandmother, my great-grandmother, Catherine Dimer.
Yep.
You know, that's where our bloodline runs through the Dimer side, and then we come to the Taylors. And then go way back up here, there's only one name. That's our writer, England.
Yep.
That's why on this side.
Yeah.
But Ryder still came down through this way. So
That's right. It's funny, isn't it?
it is funny because it's like I was saying, they put us in missions.
Yes, that's right.
And we could not go far to look for out of their bloodline.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, basically
And they destroyed that.
Yeah. And on that point, how did you manage to get the Indigenous side, the Aboriginal side of things? Was the DIA, whatever it's called now, or State Records help you with that at all?
Yes, State Library gave me assistance. Like all I said was just give my grandmother, my mother and father, and then their mother and father's name, and then they just went straight back to.
Do you know what is one ironic tragedy with the whole situation here of being forced into missions and things like that is that the state has got wonderful records.
Yeah.
Even though it was disgraceful what occurred, you can follow it quite easily now. It's a paper trail, precisely right. Whereas, you know, for a person who's European or European descent, we don't have that type of paper trail. So it's great that it's a privilege that you can do that, even though it doesn't make up for what occurred in the past, obviously.
That's why I gotta, maybe when I do Welcome to Country or some of those things, I gotta give these names.
Yes.
Because from there on, like back that way, Dreamtime.
Yeah, that's right.
And then from back this way,
Yeah.
to us, the colonial and construction.
That is right. But still, so you got all the sources to this is well referenced.
Yes. The ancestry from London, and there's also, like, they've got to go to America to get all the information over there. So I'm just trying to, you know, and I'm ecstatic. I even got all these, and I got photographs, and also with them, and like birth certificates, and all sorts of medical certificates, and all sorts of that. Whatever rations they got, you know, it was a.
This is real. I wish some of my students would actually reference like this. I'm having a bit of a crack at Panther there because, you know, I mean, for anything to be scholarly and for anything that's got to be of high quality, you've got to say where you get the references from. And I see here that you've actually used the baptismal records from Noongyar and the record of Trove, of course, which of course is the Catholic newspaper. We've got some of those secondary sources from Neville Green and Lois Tilbrook. Wonderful stuff. Very good indeed. How's your family behaved to this as well? Have they, because I often find with this type of thing, you might love it, but your partner or your kids or something like that mightn't like it at all type of thing. What's their opinion in regards to it?
Their opinion, I've shown my elders, my auntie.
Yep.
She's very good that I am tracing my roots back, and they aren't forgotten people. That's the main reason why I pursued to get my family tree, because I can't get that from my elders and go back, because they can go back so far. So at least with this, I can go back right through that records, and like I was saying before, at least I know my these names of Aboriginal, tribal names, the one name, and that's the name that I got to start using to go back to my ancestry.
Of course, that's precisely right. And who was it? Just trying to think of the references, Armstrong and people like that back in the 1830s, 1840s, tried very hard to actually put these people into areas, but they weren't anthropologists, so therefore they usually got. And they couldn't understand Noongyar or any Aboriginal groups' movements around the landscape. That just completely bamboozled the British. You laugh at it now because they weren't aware of the types of lifestyle that people like Noongyars did in those days. They always live off the land and have large areas of movement around. The kinship systems, which are completely different, of course, to the European kinship systems.
Because nucleus, that's the European system, but our system is much more broader than that.
That's right.
Yeah. Our extended families are very most important to us. Otherwise we lose our identity, and that's when the stolen generation, when they get moved, they lost their identity.
Yes, it must have been terrible. And again, even though some terrible things have occurred, the resilience is also something that I'd imagine you'd be pretty proud of as well.
Yes, I mentioned on one of my posts about the pain and suffering that we have endured over the past 2 centuries, but that is a testament to our resilience of survival.
Yeah, it is.
And very strong. I honour my ancestors and my great-great-parents all the way to me, because without them, with their resilience, I would not be here.
No, that's right. Precisely right. Despite all the issues that they went through and so forth.
Yes. And I want to ask you maybe that day to day. I feel that she was not there, or she got into our communities, but at the same time, she was doing construction for our communities. Is that a fair statement or not?
I think if anybody wanted to write a biography on Daisy Bates, he would have to take both sides. Is it a fair statement? It's certainly, I tend to agree. I lean that way as well. Not necessarily 100% type of thing. I'm more back, maybe just a little bit left of centre. And I'm also looking at her work that she did from more of an academic side of things. Her notes are terrible. Her note taking. And, you know, I teach my archaeology and my history students, especially archaeology students, if you're in the field, you've got to take careful notes. Where you are, the date, who's working with you, what did you find, what squares it found you. Her notes are all over the place. And I think because of that, any information that could have been useful has sort of been lost anyway. But then there's not the typical anthropology or anthropologist mindset of just working with people and just treating them like scientific subjects. That's where the disappointment probably comes into it in a fair bit, I think, is the fact that she just did work and saw these people not necessarily as humans, but just as interesting samples in many ways. So your opinion is that you're not particularly happy with some of her work?
Not particularly happy, but you know, the Aborigines at that time did respect it, you know, and well, maybe that was a false pretense or whatever, but she did gain some respect within the Aboriginals back then, and they called her maybe something like a grandmother or something.
Well, that is right. I believe that's the case, but I've also, and I know a number of contemporary Aboriginal people don't particularly like her, and I must admit I haven't had a close look at her notes or anything like that, but her books that she's written that date to the 1920s, 1930s are very patronising, of course, but that's how, unfortunately, everybody wrote in those days about Aboriginal people.
Yes.
Even A.O. Neville, for example, you know, he wrote in exactly the same way. A group of people that are going extinct, that need our help, you know, the typical patronising type of thing, and that just comes through in her tone throughout the entire book. So I can understand how contemporary Aboriginal people today are so annoyed, rightfully so.
Yes. I've got a letter here from I ended up writing one down from her. It was from Inspector Duncan Menzies, but it's Mrs. Daisy M. Bates, who was supposed to have an intimate knowledge of native affairs, and who was at the present time travelling with the Cambridge Expedition Party. Having been appointed a travelling protector of Aborigines for the time being with limited authorities, states in a report I have received from her from Sandstone, the following relative to the recent Laverton massacres. I gave, this is her speaking, I gave one young woman with a 2-month-old baby some rations one day, and almost certain that her husband is one of the Darla fugitives. I asked her quietly about the raid and murders, and she stated it originated in a breach of tribal law. But as she was the only person I questioned, her statements want further proof. I may get that proof later. There is a certainty of retaliation expedition following on some time, as new spears were being made by many of the younger men, and that is always a bad sign. Sandstone is, I know, an Inspector Jury's district, but as the Laverton massacre is being dealt with by you, I forward the above in case it should be of any assistance. Possibly it will not, but at the same time I did not care to let any information on the subject pass.
Yeah, so she's well aware of things that are going on and so forth.
I just like in there they're preparing spears and that. Retaliating. What do we do as people? Just let them massacre us and we can't do nothing.
No, that's right. And what's also tragic about those events, of course, is that the deliberately being brushed under the carpet as well.
Oh, right.
You're probably aware that there's been an effort in the last couple of years to actually produce a map of Australia with all the massacre sites and so forth. There's still a little bit of a void there, I think, from Western Australia. Most of the Eastern Australian sites have been mapped, but even then the retaliation that was received by some people, it said that this never occurred and so forth, and that it's a beat up and stuff like that. This, of course, again means that we haven't moved forward in my opinion. But yes, Bates most likely, and would have been aware of all of those things, and didn't necessarily do anything about it either, obviously, which is sad, isn't it?
It is. And like I was saying, it's all got to do with the law.